A $400 wrench set on a mobile tool truck and a $120 set at Harbor Freight came off the exact same forging press in Taiwan. The patent filings prove it. Millions of mechanics never organized a boycott of these 7 brands. They just stopped paying the markup one by one without a hashtag. 2 of the companies on this list are owned by the same private equity firm that gutted a 100-year-old American forge. One flagship factory cost $90 million and never shipped a single sellable wrench. 7. Start with the truck brand financing itself on your credit line. Number 7. Matco Tools. Matco is a franchise distribution network, not a manufacturer, owned by Vontier Corporation. Vontier was spun off from Fortive in 2020, and Fortive itself was spun off from Danaher back in 2016. That's 3 layers of corporate parentage between the name on the truck and any actual production floor. Matco holds minimal captive drop forge infrastructure for hand tools. Its core ratcheting wrenches come from Cabo Tool Company, a forge in Taichung, Taiwan that also supplies Mountain, Carlisle, and Harbor Freight's Icon line. Cabo forges a long, double-box flex head ratchet set and sells it to the brand owner for somewhere around $25 to $34 landed. The brand owner marks it up and sells it to the independent franchisee for roughly $100. That franchisee is covering a leased truck, fuel, route depreciation, and customer credit financing. So the set goes on the truck for anywhere from $380 to $450. Walk into a Harbor Freight and you'll find a Mountain or Icon Flex set built on the same forging, the same patent geometry, the same tooth count for $110 to $140. That's not a coincidence. Cabo controlled the master patent on that fine-tooth, low-profile flex head design for over a decade, and once that patent expired, everyone got access to the same forge line. You're not paying for better steel on that truck. You're financing somebody's route debt at a 200 to 280% markup over the exact same product. Matco at least admits what it is: a distribution company wearing a tool brand's name. The next brand on this list tried to convince the country it still owned a forge, until the machine it bought to prove that fell apart on the shop floor. Number 6. Craftsman, Stanley Black & Decker. In 2017, Stanley Black & Decker paid Sears $900 million for the Craftsman name. Not the forges, not the tool makers, just the logo and the shelf space. The domestic backbone that actually built Craftsman's reputation for generations was a supplier called Western Forge out of Colorado Springs, which had been quietly producing screwdrivers and adjustable wrenches for Craftsman, Husky, and Cobalt alike. Western Forge's owner, Ideal Industries, shut that plant down permanently in February of 2020, severing the last real manufacturing link between the Craftsman name and its own heritage. Today, Craftsman hardlines run through mainland China, India, and Southeast Asia, mostly stamped from baseline 50BV30 chrome vanadium steel, the entry-level alloy used across the budget end of the entire industry. In 2019, SBD tried to answer its own credibility problem by announcing a $90 million, 425,000 square foot automated forging plant in Fort Worth, Texas, built specifically to bring Craftsman mechanics tool production back onto American soil. The plant leaned on automated machinery imported from Europe to form alloy steel wire stock into wrench and ratchet handles without a human operator touching them. The tolerances drifted almost immediately. When they did, custom machined replacement tooling had to be shipped in from overseas, taking weeks to arrive. Automated transfer arms kept misaligning the blanks inside the press dies, producing deformed handles, off-center socket drive holes, and parts with no brand stamp on them at all, unusable for retail. SBD had also incentivized its senior domestic toolmakers into early retirement in the years before. The exact people with the manual die sinking and heat treat expertise the plant needed to debug the automated system by hand. Without them, the facility never recovered. It closed permanently in March of 2023 without ever completing a commercial production run. Owning a name doesn't buy you the manufacturing behind it. SBD owns the Craftsman logo. It doesn't own a single forge that ever made that logo mean something. Craftsman at least tried publicly and failed publicly. The next brand didn't bother trying. It just moved its forge line across a border and hoped nobody with a torque wrench would notice. Number 5. GearWrench, Apex Tool Group. Apex Tool Group was formed in 2010 when Danaher merged its hand tool division with Cooper Industries. 2 years later, private equity firm Bain Capital acquired the entire company outright. Bain's first major move was closing the historic Armstrong Tools drop forge in Sumter, South Carolina in 2017, eliminating one of the last major domestic industrial hand tool forges, still supplying federal contracts and industrial supply houses. GearWrench, Apex's flagship ratchet brand, had built its reputation on precision Taiwanese manufacturing partners like Liawei and Cabo. Under Bain's ownership, that production relocated to mainland Chinese facilities. Mechanics noticed before any press release confirmed it. Complaints stacked up across forums describing increased directional backdrag torque in the ratchet head, looser dimensional tolerances in the box end broaching, and chrome plating that wore unevenly within months of daily use. Customs waterborne import manifests confirmed the shift, showing container volume moving from Taiwanese ports at Taichung to mainland Chinese ports at Ningbo and Shanghai, matching the origin country updates that started appearing on retail packaging. A brand's entire reputation gets built on one factory's tolerances. Private equity ownership means that factory can be swapped out overnight with zero warning to the customer, and you find out only when the ratchet feels different in your hand. GearWrench got caught because mechanics could physically feel the degradation. The next brand's trick is a label that's technically legal and still misleading enough to matter. Number 4. Made in USA with global materials. This industry-wide labeling maneuver exists because the Federal Trade Commission drew a hard line on origin claims. Under FTC consent orders and enforcement policy, an unqualified Made in USA claim legally requires a product to be all or virtually all produced domestically. Most conglomerates can't clear that bar anymore given how globally distributed their supply chains have become. So they shifted to a qualified label instead. Made in USA with global materials is now standard across retail packaging. In practice, that phrase often means final surface finishing, basic assembly, or packaging happened on American soil, while the primary high labor steps, the actual forging, CNC machining, and heat treatment that determine whether a tool survives real torque happened overseas. Customers on tool forums have documented the swap in real time, watching brands quietly retire unqualified USA claims and replace them with the qualified disclosure once FTC scrutiny increased. That small print label is a legal admission that the steel and forging you're paying an American premium for likely never touched American soil before reaching your toolbox. It's a marketing strategy that lets a conglomerate leverage domestic manufacturing heritage while sourcing the expensive parts from low-cost overseas facilities. The next name on this list has a different problem. An entire supply chain, and the town that depended on it disappeared at once. Number 3. Western Forge, Ideal Industries. Western Forge spent decades as the dominant domestic OEM supplier of screwdrivers and adjustable wrenches for Craftsman, Husky, and Cobalt simultaneously. 3 apparent market competitors relied on the same Colorado Springs production line the entire time. In February of 2020, owner Ideal Industries shut that plant down permanently. This wasn't one brand losing one supplier. It was the last shared domestic backbone propping up the illusion of choice across multiple retail brands at once. When Western Forge disappeared, every brand that depended on it had to scramble simultaneously for overseas replacements. And the different tools you thought you were choosing between all had to find new, separate origins overnight, whether that meant Taiwan, mainland China, or somewhere else entirely. You lost more than a single factory. You lost the invisible infrastructure that made brand diversity look real when it was never real to begin with. Losing a hidden supplier quietly is bad enough on its own. What happened next to a brand people trusted more than almost any other played out publicly in a very different way. Number 2, Snap-on's warranty friction. Snap-on deserves credit, the rest of this list doesn't. It's still an independent, publicly traded company, and it still runs captive drop forging facilities in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Elizabethton, Tennessee, and Natchez, Mississippi. The metallurgy is real. Snap-on's mechanics hand tools use forged 4140 and 4340 chrome molybdenum steel and proprietary alloys, some of the toughest material specifications in the entire industry. Metallurgy isn't where Snap-on is losing customers though, the warranty structure is. In the mobile franchise route model, A driver who didn't personally sell you your ratchet is often the one absorbing the cost of replacing it, which pushes franchisees towards strict proof-of-purchase demands, commercial use exclusions buried in the fine print, and processing delays that push a working mechanic to just buy a replacement out of pocket instead of waiting on a claim. And on pure destructive testing numbers, the premium doesn't always hold up either. Independent torque dyno testing has shown a Snap-on FL 83/8" ratchet, running an 80-tooth carburized alloy steel gear, shearing at its square drive around 280 foot-pounds. A $55 Harbor Freight Icon G2 ratchet running a 90-tooth 4140 chrome molybdenum gear with a dual-pawl engagement design, survived past 310 foot-pounds before yielding. The best domestic forging operation left in this industry still can't outmarket a warranty policy that punishes you for buying the tool from the wrong route driver. If the most legitimately American brand on this list is losing customers over policy friction alone, consider what's happening to the company that couldn't even keep its own flagship reshoring factory open. Number 1. Stanley Black & Decker's Fort Worth collapse. Everything on this list traces back to one filing. Stanley Black & Decker's 2022 Form 10-K disclosed a global restructuring plan targeting $2 billion in pre-tax annual cost reductions, along with a 40% cut to global product SKUs. That single filing is the corporate blueprint behind nearly every closure named in this video. Fort Worth was supposed to be the proof that reshoring actually worked. Instead, it became one of the most expensive failed manufacturing projects in the modern hand tool industry's history. The automated machinery imported from Europe never integrated properly with the forging process, and SBD had already pushed out the senior toolmakers who possessed the manual die sinking and heat treat expertise needed to fix it by hand. The plant closed for good in March of 2023, and SBD's own 2023 10-K discloses non-cash asset impairment charges tied directly to that closure and liquidation. It didn't stop there. In 2024, SBD closed its Fort Mill, South Carolina Facility 2, the last major DeWalt and Craftsman hand tool assembly plant in the country, laying off nearly 200 workers as part of the broader footprint consolidation. $900 million to buy the Craftsman name. $90 million to build a plant meant to prove that name still meant something. 0 commercial units ever shipped from Fort Worth. The company positioned publicly as the industry's last great domestic champion is, by its own SEC filings, the single largest driver of the offshoring it claims to be fighting. Every brand on this list proves the same thing that Wrench set at the very top proved. The price tag on a hand tool has almost nothing to do with the steel inside it, and everything to do with private equity debt, franchise financing, and a logo you were trained to trust. Buy the forge, not the brand, because Tier 1 Taiwanese OEMs like Cabo and Infar are already making the same hardlines at a fraction of the cost. Comment which brand on this list burned you first, subscribe, and tap the video on screen because we're naming the exact factories making your favorite American tools next.